So today I wanted to share how I made this awesome Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous gate for my son's birthday celebration. So I wanted to recreate the Camp Cretaceous gate, and this was the picture that I used for reference. This project took me about 3 weeks. I used mainly cardboard and glue. I also had most of the supplies already, but it did cost me $50 just because I had to purchase the paint. It also ended up being 6.5 feet in height and 8 feet in width because it's really got to wow people. I also had to move the Camp Cretaceous sign up a little bit more because I wanted to make sure that you can see it, especially when my son was sitting down. Again, when you look at them side by side, they are very similar, but the sign is smaller and the rocks are gray, not as warm as what you'd see on the show, but I don't think anyone would notice these things. So to get started, I used an empty wall in my house to put up some builder's paper. I then secured it with painter's tape because I wanted to be able to take it down later. But I started sketching the doors first, and then I moved on to the arch and then the rocks around the doors. I used my reference picture a lot and a ruler to make sure everything was symmetrical, and this took me about a day to do. I thought about just painting it from here also, but I thought it would look boring, so that's why I added the cardboard. As for the font, it was hard to draw by eye, so I did take the reference picture into Illustrator to recreate the fonts. I had to actually adjust it a few times to get it perfect, but once it was done, I just traced it over the paper. Then I started cutting cardboard into strips and just taping them all together. Again, when I started this project, it was around December, so Cyber Monday and Black Friday already happened. I was just waiting for my packages to come in, and once I had all those boxes, I just reused them for this project. Assembling the door was probably the most tedious part of this project, but by doing it this way, it really makes the door look very realistic. The Camp Cretaceous sign also ended up being separate from the door, and the doors are also not connected to each other because I wanted to be able to open them later. But everything was secured temporarily with packaging tape or painter's tape to help me visualize and draw all the elements on the door. But I did later secure everything with wood glue because I wanted the structure to last long and hold itself up. Here is the top of the arch, and as for the Jurassic World sign, it needed more depth, so I had it on a separate cardboard and glued it on later as one big piece. So here you can see I traced Camp Cretaceous onto the door. I even added the shadow on the font so that it would be easier for me to paint later. Again, when it came to painting, I used washable tempera paint because I wanted a matte powdery finish. I also started with light colors first, then layered onto darker colors as I progressed, not only to make colors more vibrant and rich, but to also avoid making mistakes. I also used a variety of paint brushes. My favorite were a flat brush and a fan brush. Again, I just dry brushed these paints onto the cardboard. They are so easy to use and they're also washable, so I didn't have to wear any gloves. But this white paint is not very opaque. I actually really only used it to make my other lighter colors more vivid. Again, painting over cardboard tends to make colors look very dull, so by putting white on first, it'll really help those other colors stand out later. So I wanted to work on the arch first just to get the texture of the rock perfect. I mixed white, gray, and black. I didn't mix the colors thoroughly though. I wanted to have a little bit of variation on the rock, so I left it with like a little swirly effect, and then I just worked around it and I added veins and just made sure to add different values and textures to it to create depth. So once that was done, I moved on to the Jurassic World sign. And again, I prepped it with white first because the letters are in red and yellow. So again, once that dried, I followed up with red and I'm using a flat brush to apply that. Again, the border of each letter is yellow, so I didn't really go into those areas, but I painted these letters red first and then added a little bit of a gradient effect to the bottom just to give it a little bit more depth. Later on, I did add the yellow, which I did not film myself doing, but the yellow is going to go around all of the letters. I also added shadow to it to create a little bit more depth and make it look a little more realistic. So now after prepping all of the fonts, I finally get to paint it. And again, this part looks kind of ugly because you're not really seeing all the details yet, but painted all the yellow, all the oranges, having a little bit of a gradient effect to the font, and then creating all of the border and everything around the actual emblem of Camp Cretaceous was really exciting and fun. As soon as I put in those brown and black colors, everything just popped and it just looked amazing. I then had to work on the actual wood of the door, and I did this all in one piece so I can get all the colors and the shades correctly. And again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create like a very natural wood grain effect. And so I worked with a lot of different colors of browns. I used different brush strokes. I used small, thin brushes. I used fan brushes, whatever it took to create kind of like that wood grain effect. Eventually, I got it down. I added more shadows, and then I drew in the dinosaurs. I also even added a little bit of highlights to the door to just really make it stand out a little bit more. While I was painting the doors, I also ended up building the rocks around the door. I don't have any pictures of me assembling them or the process of it, but it did take me about a day or two to get them perfect. I also ended up painting the rocks with sort of like a gray shade so that it would have more contrast to the doors. When I was painting them, I also tried very different methods to get my rocks to look natural. They were the hardest things for me to perfect. I mean, I stippled, dabbed on layers and layers of paint. I even added veins and dents, and it just didn't work. So when I switched to a sponge, that's what really helped to create this realistic rock texture. And of course, by adding darker shadows and even highlights, it made the illusion even better. So I am now 90% done. The torches are the only thing that are missing. So I went ahead and made some, again, out of cardboard. I also painted them a very dark color. Then I used some construction paper to cut up some fire, and I glued them and put them inside of the box. I used some wood glue to secure them onto my form, and that is it. We are completely finished, or so I thought. I actually felt like it was missing something, so I decided to go back and add an electric fence to this piece, literally the day of my son's birthday. You guys, I am so excited and proud of myself. It actually turned out better than I had expected. The last and final steps are just to blow up some balloons and decorate. Again, I made all of these leaves out of construction paper, and then I just put them into my bush of balloons. I placed them in front and behind the gate. I also had a few balloons just scattering around the floor, but man, oh, it looks so good. I also set up this small table for his toys and for his cake, and the tablecloth is from Party City, but the rest is all me. So again, here is a little clip from my son's birthday celebration. He loved the balloons. He actually saw me building this gate, so he didn't really care about the gate in the end, but it was fantastic as a backdrop for his birthday. I even got to ride a dinosaur, which was awesome. But yeah, I wanted to finally share with you guys how I got this gate to stand up on its own, which it does not. I did have to place a bunch of cardboard on the back to support it, but I also had to put gallons of water on the bottom to hold it straight. I'm gonna have to finish the back one day, but the doors are done. You can put them together or you can separate them. You can even remove them and add different doors later. But yeah, that is it for this project. I really hope that you guys liked how it turned out. I am super stoked. I'm so impressed with myself. I just can't believe it. But yeah, thanks again for watching. My name is Ash. I'll see you guys next time.